On day two, we were at 12,000 feet. We were gassed. 12,000 feet. We'd been hiking for 2 days, and all of a sudden the clouds parted and we saw the mountain. And I'm telling you, flat out, you're just going, not a chance. There's no way. I've got artificial knees. My son's 12 years old. I started making all the rationale on why we couldn't do it. Honestly, I'm on the mountain and I'm going, I don't think I can do this. And it's just like when we face our own mountains. But I looked at my son, and my son's Chinese, and I hold that very near and dear to my heart. But we decided that our life, that next 4 days, was going to be the famous Chinese proverb: the journey of 1,000 miles is the first step,
Hmm.
and then the next step. And I said, if I look at that mountain, I can't climb it, but I can take the next step. I know I can take the next step. And that is what I would tell people is it's easier to walk around the mountain and skirt it, but it's just as easy to take one step forward.
Welcome to the Valiant Forge podcast, where we help men overcome life's battles, show up better in the world, and become a valiant warrior for God. This is a place where we share practical strategies that will equip you on life's journey to help you become the man God has called you to be. Are you ready to overcome your doubt and fulfill your purpose just like Gideon? If so, let's go.
My guest today is Dr. Jack Grapple. He's lived a life that sounds almost unreal. He's traveled to 52 countries, worked with world-class athletes, spoke on stages with global icons, and he built a company that eventually sold to Johnson & Johnson. All of that success was fueled by a deep father wound and an addiction to achievement that started when he was 6 years old. In this conversation, Dr. Jack shares about a beating that shaped his identity, the moment he hit rock bottom alone in a hospital bed, and a sentence a mentor spoke that changed the entire trajectory of his life. He talks about adopting his son from China, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro together, and the spiritual mountains that men avoid because they're afraid to face what's at the top, and how we can face those mountains. And I want you to stay to the end because in the outro, I have a takeaway from the episode that I want to impart to you, an encouragement that you can take away and add to your life, and hopefully it will help you. Here is my conversation with Dr. Jack Grapple. Dr. Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your story. You've done a lot of things from what I've seen and what I've heard. So,
Had a very blessed career, but not a not a blessed life, but not so very circuitous, Mark. Let's put it that way.
oh, that's a big word. You have to explain that to me.
Circuitous all over the place.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah. Well, a lot of our lives are like that.
Yeah, that's right.
But you've experienced and been in the, well, I don't want to say, because you've been in the presence of the Lord. So you've been in the presence of greatness. But before we got on, you were telling me about some of the people that you met. And
Yeah.
what was going through my head while you were telling me that is that your gift will bring you before great men,
It's
which is
true,
a
right?
scripture. Yeah.
Mm.
So tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, very humble beginnings. Small Midwestern town in southwest Illinois, about 25 miles from St. Louis, Missouri, across the Mississippi River on the Illinois
Mm.
side. My mom and dad both worked. I was born in the 50s. It's odd for both parents to work in those days. My dad was a school teacher, my mom was a bookkeeper. My sister was 10 years older, and she basically raised me. And the reason I'm telling you that is she played a huge role in my career later on. Um, and most of my family were farmers. All the uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents worked on farms. So I spent all the time on farms. And on paper, I should have been a farmer. And in my family, as you grew up, you either played football or you played baseball because of the Cardinals. It was the football
Mm.
Cardinals then that moved to Arizona and the baseball Cardinals. And everything was Cardinals. So I was a baseball player. I wasn't big enough to be a football player, but so I was accepted as a baseball player. And I was pretty good. I wasn't great at all. But when I was 11 years old, and this is an important part of the story. My dad, for whatever reason, had 21 beagles. Now, the reason he had them, my dad loved to compete. So he trained the dogs to do what's called field trials.
Hmm.
And the beagles would go out and they wouldn't kill the rabbit, but they would release a rabbit. And then the beagles are timed. These are timed field trials on how the beagle barks and then herds the rabbit back to the hunter. So it's timed field trials. And Dad's kennel was called Shady Dale Kennels. And Dad had a national champion beagle, and he named him after President Eisenhower, and his nickname is
Wow.
Shady Dale Ike. And you could look this up. And Ike was one of the big names in beagles in the 1950s. Um, so now Dad wants to take a different job in a little bit larger town, so he couldn't keep the beagles. So he sold Ike. And for me in my little brain, I couldn't understand why dad was selling because all I saw was fulfillment and joy with my dad. And my dad and I had a tough relationship. I mean, he definitely believed spoil the rod, spare the rod, spoil the child. I mean, we had some tough moments. But when I was 9 years old, we drove to Niagara Falls and I saw dad take $900 in cash for Ike. And that's a small fortune in,
Wow.
in, in today's money. That's, you know, 20 to $30,000, I think, something like that. I don't know.
Wow.
Um, and for a dog, I'm just going, whoa. So the entrepreneur spirit kind of, I saw it, but my dad
Hmm.
was never a business guy. Um, and then we moved to a town called Alton, Illinois. And when I was 11 years, I played baseball, but when I was 11, my mom and dad, for whatever reason, said, "We want you to take tennis lessons." And I'm going, "You got to be kidding me." I mean, that wasn't considered a masculine sport back in the day, in
Right,
the
right.
early 60s. But my mom and dad, for whatever reason, said you could play tennis your whole life. And I said, oh, God, begrudgingly, and I took lessons. Well, a year later, I didn't really do anything with it. I did okay, but I hated it. I wanted to play baseball. A year later, I'm in junior high or what they call middle school now in seventh grade, and I meet a guy by the name of Bill Wicks. And Bill was a tennis player, and he was a really nice guy, and he wanted to hang out with me, so he invited me to play tennis. Well, then I got the bug, and I started realizing, I could be good at this.
Hmm.
And Bill and we taught ourselves to play. We would shovel the courts, snow on in the winter, and we'd have two cans of tennis balls, leave the car running, so one can of balls could stay warm. And when the can of balls got so cold they wouldn't bounce as well, we exchanged the balls. So we're playing with gloves and parkas, and we were just nuts, but we taught ourselves to play. And then in college, Bill walked on at the University of Miami in Florida, and I walked on at the University of Illinois. I wanted to play tennis in the Big Ten, but I didn't get a scholarship offer there. I was getting offers from smaller schools. I was ranked in the top 4 or 5 in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and so I make the team. But my dad said, if I've got to pay for your education, you've got to study something worthwhile like agriculture. And I'm going, I don't care. I just want to play tennis in the Big Ten. I don't care.
Right.
All I
Yeah.
cared about. And I made the team and I got my degree in wildlife biology. Well, now I couldn't get a job because all the hippies got all the jobs. I mean, National Park Service, the National Forest, there were no jobs. So I got one job offer, and one of the job descriptions was shoveling hog manure. And I said,
Wow.
well, I'm not going to do that because one of the jobs that dad made me do for 2 summers in high school was the National Vinegar Company. And one of the things and I tell all this in my new book that's coming out, Mountains Within. We can talk about that later. But I tell all these stories because one of the jobs was climbing into a 50,000-gallon vinegar vat and squeegeeing what they called vinegar mud out of a bunghole in the bottom. Well, shoveling hog manure was like shoveling vinegar mud. And I just go, I got a college degree. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So what I do, I go to grad school. Now, I go to grad school. My brother-in-law had a doctorate in population genetics. So that's what I'm going to study. I'm going to study population genetics, get accepted. But my first job was there was a beetle called flower beetle, Tribolium beetle. And my job was 3 days a week. I had to change the flour in test tubes so these little beetle could procreate more rapidly. So here I am at 22 years of age, and I'm creating an environment for a romantic rendezvous between beetles, and I'm crying myself to sleep. I'm a mess. And this is why I told my sister earlier. I called her one night, and I'm in tears, 22. And I said, sis, I don't know. I don't think I can stay here. I just can't do this. And she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to play tennis. I mean, that's what that was 22-year-old guy. She said, well, Ellen, why don't you talk to some of the professors over in the Department of Physical Education? And my first thought is dad will kill me because he didn't think that was a viable career.
Right.
And But I made the appointment and they accepted the appointment. And within 10 seconds, Mark, I knew I was in the right place. They put me in the master's program. My first semester, I took cadaver anatomy. That was a bit off-putting, seeing a human body for the first time and then dissecting it, exercise physiology and kinesiology. But I fell in love with it and I got straight A's.
Wow.
At the end of that semester, at the end of that semester, my kines teacher by the name of Chuck Dillman changed my life. He said 17 words to me. He said, if you apply yourself, you could be a pioneering leader in the science of tennis performance. And there was no career like this. There was no, I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the best in the world. I'm going to do quality work, whatever I do, quality, quality, quality. Now, all along, Mark, as it relates to your listeners, my mom had taken me to Sunday school and I had gone. And I don't think there was ever a time in my life that I didn't believe that Jesus didn't rise from the dead. I mean, that Jesus was my Lord and Savior, but I didn't live my life like that. I was living,
Right.
I was Christianese, you know,
Yeah.
I was, you know, I could say the words, but my lifestyle was not. I was a partying fool. I mean, I would work hard. I didn't want to sacrifice my career, but I would work my butt off and then I would play my butt off. And I was dating like crazy and because I never saw a good, healthy relationship model between a man and a woman. My
Mm.
dad, my mom were, my dad was really mean. He was mean to me. I mean, and that's all explained in detail in the book, as I said, and in my story. But so I fall in love with the field. I get straight A's, and and I get my master's degree. Well, I want to go on because this is good. So I go to Florida State University for my PhD, and when I get there, my doctoral director status, his name's Terry Ward, unbelievable guy, but he didn't have doctoral directive status. He could oversee my dissertation, but he couldn't direct my degree. So I got Dr. Robert Singer, who was going to become the president of the International Society of Sports Psychology. So now I have this multidimensional approach to human performance, I'm being mentored. So Chuck Dillman was an amazing mentor. And then I got Terry Ward and Bob Singer, amazing mentor. None of them true, actually believers, if you will. I mean, not outspoken believers, but the idea that I was being brought along and this whole idea of mentoring in is something that's very, very important to me as your listeners pay attention to this. And by the way, I don't care how old you are, have a mentor. And
Amen.
and even if you're older, be a mentor. So
Yep.
do not let the word mentoring out of your life. That's one message.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the other one is have hope. That's how my book ends in the epilogue is have hope because you might be steering clear of an odd lifestyle. You might be unhappy, but I will tell you God's with you. So here I am, and I've been really clear with you on I wasn't living a Christian lifestyle. I was pretty crazy and traveling all over the world. My research started getting accepted, and now I'm being invited to speak everywhere. I get married at 34 to a very young woman. She probably shouldn't have married me. She was right out of college, and she played number one for the University of Illinois, where I was on the
Mm.
faculty now. See, after I got my doctorate, I was hired back at Illinois as the men's tennis coach. So here I was, that kid never had a tennis lesson, never had a tennis lesson, yet played for the Big Ten, and now I'm coaching in the Big Ten. Never
Wow.
had a tennis lesson. I mean, that's stupid. I mean, you can't make that stuff up, you
Right.
know. And when I was 17 years old, I just skipped over this. I was a foreign exchange student in Guatemala. Now I've got all this Catholicism, you know, even though it's Spanish, but it's all Catholicism. And we're climbing active volcanoes. I'm going to the northern part of Guatemala. We're confronted by jaguars. I mean, it's like Indiana Jones stuff. I
Mm.
mean, that I was facing as a kid, the vinegar bats, the jaguars climbing an active. I've got pictures in the book at the top of the active volcano still. I kept all the pictures. So I'm
Wow.
standing with steam. I'm 20 feet from the steam and vat. You can see this. It's crazy. So now, though, I'm back at Illinois. I'm on the faculty. I'm coaching the men's tennis team, but my research is getting accepted, and now I start working with players on the tour. Now I don't have enough time to coach the men's team, so I retire. I resigned from coaching the men's team, and now I'm traveling all over the world. In 1983, I'm asked to go to San Francisco to take films of John McEnroe. He's struggling with his footwork and has some ankle problems for Nike. So now I'm shooting films of the number one athlete in the world. This is pre-Michael Jordan. And then I'm presenting that film in Washington, D.C. at a Cherry Blossom Sports Medicine Festival. A man comes out and stands in the aisle, says, "Can you do this in baseball?" And I said, "Sure, I can." And I said, and he says, "Well," I said, "What are you interested in?" He says, "I'm really concerned about the head first versus the feet first slide." And I set it up how I told him how I thought I would study it. And I said, "By the way, who are you?" He goes, "My name's Richard Corzine. I'm the team physician for the Chicago White Sox."
Wow.
Now I'm going to Old Comiskey Park every weekend shooting films. I'm right behind third base and I'm shooting high speed film. This is pre-video, by the way. This is way before all these multi-million dollar video budgets that all these sports teams have. People didn't believe in this, what I was doing. So I'm up against, I mean, the manager of the White Sox, I won't say a name, people could look it up, but he was very much against this. He said, "Do not let the players see these films." Now that was in the early 80s. But I
Mhm.
befriended the first base coach, Dave Nelson, became a dear friend. He passed away a few years ago. Davey was a dear friend of mine. He was an all-star second baseman for the Cleveland Indians in the 70s. And Davey was a dear friend and he was a big believer in what I was doing. In fact, in the book I've got him quoted in the New York Times talking about the future of film work and video work, this kind of thing, to baseball, he forecasted the whole thing, and I gave him
Wow.
total credit for the shout out that he saw it coming. Um, and so I've got McEnroe. Now I've got the White Sox, and then I'm the founding chairman of the Sports Science Committee for the United States Tennis Association. Now what we're doing, we're trying to figure out what other countries are doing that the U.S. is so far behind. Now I'm flying tennis took me to 52 countries, Mark. Yet I
Wow.
remember I never had a tennis lesson. I taught myself to play. Yet tennis took me to 52 countries. And the first marriage, I thought everything was fine. Valentine's Day, again, this is all in the book. Valentine's Day, third year of marriage, I've got diamonds and emeralds, matching jewelry for her because I'm just so in love with her. And she tells me she's moving out the next day.
Wow.
And I was devastated, devastated because she was the love of my life. And I thought everything was good. See, my brain was, I'm the provider, I'm doing this, and I'm taking her all over the world with me. Took her to Wimbledon, took her to Australian Open, but I wasn't giving her energy. I was exhausted when I was with her almost all the time, even though we were doing stuff. As I look back on it, she and I are, by the way, we're friends again. She's
That's
re
good.
Yeah. But then what did I do? I didn't get counseling. I didn't try to straighten it out because remember, I thought I was doing everything right. I actually thought she might be having an affair, but she wasn't. We've totally reconciled. Um, but I ran into the arms of my college sweetheart and we just got married right away. It was the dumbest thing in the world. And I own it. I'm not throwing her under the bus at all. I should not have gotten married, but I did because remember, I'm doing this Midwest boy lifestyle farmer. It's not the Christian approach at all. Um, well, that didn't have any foundation, and that lasted 5 years, and then didn't fell apart. So now I'm just really struggling with myself. In 1996, I'm hospitalized. Got a staph infection after one of my knee surgeries. In the hospital for 15 days and nobody came. I mean, nobody outside my family came to visit me. And I'm going, what the heck? Here, people know who I am, especially in tennis. They know who I am. And I'm getting phone calls. I'm not throwing everybody under the bus. People are calling me, but no visitors. And I'm going, this is not how I want to be. This is not who I want to be. So what I started doing then, Mark, to come back to your listeners, I said, I got to get this straight. So I read two books, written by theoretical physicists, because I'm an intellectual guy. I said, if I'm going to
Mhm.
get this in my heart, it's got to get in my brain first. I read one book called God the Evidence, and the other one called The Science of God. And in The Science of God, it made a statement that said I'm going to butcher the stat. Your listeners can look it up, but it's statistics. I've got the exact stat quoted in the book. Um, that the possibility of going from a big bang or a spark to organized biological beings like humans is like 10 to the 29th power of impossibility.
Right, right. Yeah.
And I'm going, okay. Now I get Lee Strobel's book, The Case for Christ. And then I got on the path. Then I met David Lovelace, I recommitted my life. I met David Lovelace, the senior pastor then at Discovery Church in Orlando. And he took me under his wing, basically took another chance on me. Who am I? I'm a newbie. But put me in a men's leadership group and I was studying scripture and memorizing scripture. And we were meeting every Monday night. And I just dug in hard. And I got baptized in 1998 or 99. I think it was 99. Got baptized. I remember the date. It's 99. January 10th, 99. And um, and remember, my mom and dad were difficult. The next year, my dad said the salvation prayer with me.
Wow.
Now, we've had all these knockdown, drag out arguments. And he said the salvation prayer with me. And then I'll just try to wrap it up quickly. Then in 2008, I go to China by myself. My wife at the time, my third wife, she had some struggles. She hurt her ankle real badly and couldn't travel. So I had to go by myself. And I think this is where I say that God has a sense of humor, that he's going to send this man in his mid 50s to China by himself. And they're going to put a screaming 4-year-old in his arms that hates his guts. And he's going
Hmm.
to teach the man how to love somebody. And you don't have language. He can't speak English and you can't speak Mandarin. All you've got is touch, tone of voice, and facial expression. That's all you've got. And I'm going to teach you how to love somebody. And it's
Wow.
amazing. It's just amazing. My son's here for launch week. He's here for the book launch this week, and he's visiting me. He's asleep right now, and
Hmm.
but we're as close as you. He's now a junior at the University of Iowa and just thriving. Um,
Wow.
so then, as you know, we sold our business. I started a business again. I told you I never had a tennis lesson. Well, I never had a speech class. Yet God took me to 52 countries, and I'm speaking in front of millions. In the 90s, I was on this very large speaking circuit with Muhammad Ali, Margaret Thatcher, Mikhail Gorbachev, Christopher Reeve, and in front of 20,000 people live. So never had a speech class, yet here I am speaking in front of millions in live audiences. Never had a business class, yet I started a business with one other guy with our own personal money, and we sold it 15 years later to Johnson and Johnson.
Hmm.
I mean, I've got so many of these never was trained for, but did this. And I'm not bragging. What I'm saying to people is doors will open in your life. When those doors open, will you be ready?
Right.
Because God will open doors. There's no question in my mind. We all get I could have easily played the victim lifestyle, but I think that flipped for me when Chuck Dillman said those 17 words to me, that if you apply yourself, you could become a pioneering leader. And I just went, done. I'm going to do it. And then after I retired from J&J, I worked at Judson University, as you know, the Christian school outside of
Yeah.
Chicago for 4 years. And then I retired and I now live in Southwest Florida and playing tennis every day. So
Wow.
I'm sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, no, that's good. I wanted to ask you because you mentioned it briefly on the video that I mentioned that where you did a talk at Judson.
Hmm.
You talked about your father wanting to drive to Alaska with you,
Oh, yeah.
and he had given his life to the Lord before that, right?
No, no, he hadn't yet. No,
Okay.
my dad it was an interesting situation. My dad, I think, had church forced down his throat. My dad could cite scripture from memory, but he never went to church. I never saw my dad go to church except when my sister got married and when I got married. The only time
Hmm.
he ever went to church. But he could cite scripture. But he said the salvation prayer with me like 25 years after we went to Alaska. No,
Wow.
yeah, 89. Yeah, almost 25 years after we went to Alaska. But that was a weird conversation because I'm a junior in college. I'm playing tennis at Illinois. My junior year, I got injured. So my senior year's got to be it. It's not like today's world where you can redshirt and play another year. I had my last year of eligibility, and Dad calls me in the spring and says, "Tell your coach that you're not going to play many tournaments this year. We're gonna drive to Alaska." And I went, "We're gonna what?" And I said, "How long are we going to be gone?" And he said, "About 6 weeks." I literally said, "Dad, we'll kill each other." And he said, "Well, I'm not sure, but I think we need to do it." So yeah, we took off and we were gone 6 weeks, drove from outside of St. Louis all the way to Fairbanks, Alaska, and then drove back, took the inside passage. We ferried the truck, and Dad just put a cover on the back of a pickup truck. We just had little bunk beds inside the pickup truck for bad weather. Uh, But yeah, I tell about that story to Alaska. But that was the stimulus for my son and I then to a few years later to climb Kilimanjaro was the fact that Dad and I went to Alaska. And that was the beginning, even though pure reconciliation didn't happen for a while afterwards, that was the beginning of reconciliation between my dad and I. And I just
So what?
encourage fathers to do adventures like that with their sons.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So what brought on you wanting to go to Kilimanjaro?
Yeah. Well, I've
Did
always
you
had,
did you and your son do some adventures before that? Because I would think climbing Kilimanjaro is quite a feat.
it was quite a feat. Well, I was an Eagle Scout. and my son was in scouting, and he liked camping. And when I was in scouting, I just hiked all the time. But you got to understand that I did a lot of things to get out of dad's, get a good away from my dad. I mean, my
Mm.
dad was just such a fear monger, and I'm not throwing him under the bus. I love him to death, and I miss him, but he was a real fear monger when about running life. So I was playing tennis constantly, so I could be out of the house. I went to Guatemala, I think, to escape him as a foreign exchange student. Um, and then, the when I adopted my son Shen, um, I realized that I was in my 60s, and you know, I want to have an adventure like my dad and I did, but I'm kind of a go big or go home kind of a guy. And I always had an affinity for Africa. I had gone to South Africa on a safari before, and I started doing research, and I found out that Kilimanjaro was the highest mountain in the world that you can hike without technical gear. In other words, you can actually hike to the summit. You don't need, you know, crampons, or you don't need ropes and ladders, you can actually hike. And I said, okay, it's extremely high. Don't know how I'll handle and my son was a cleft palate child, so I didn't know how he'd handle altitude. So I decided a year and a half before that I wanted to go to I wanted to try it, but I was going to take him to Rocky Mountain National Park, and he was still in Scouts. So we did some merit badge hiking, and I was just able to watch him at 12,000, 14,000 feet, because Kilimanjaro is 19,341. It's over a mile higher than you ever are in the Rockies. Um, and he handled it pretty well. And I talked to his mom. She and I, that was the marriage that didn't make it either. We were already divorced. Talked to her, told her what I wanted to do, and I assured her of his safety, and that if something happened to me on the mountain, there were going to be people that she knew with us, that they would get him back. Like if I had a heart attack or something on the
Yeah,
mountain,
right.
or if I fell and died, that we would get him back to her. And I worked for Johnson and Johnson at the time, so we had a lot of back search security measures for him. And to tell you about a little bit about her response, we hung up, and I called her right back. I said, "Do you mind not telling anybody about this, because I haven't talked to him yet?" And she goes, "What am I going to say? Do you know what that idiot wants to do now?" You know, because that's kind of how people kind of looked at it. What's the idiot doing now? Because it's just me. I'm just as I say, when I was 17, I climbed an active volcano in
Right.
Guatemala all the way to the summit, and so we started training. I played tennis, and he was in karate. And he was in the dojo 4 or 5 days a week, and I was on the tennis court 3 or 4 or 5 days a week. So aerobically we trained, and then in the spring we did a lot of hiking with poles and backpacks and carrying weights, and then we went to Africa. We did a week in the Serengeti. We saw the Great Migration, and then we were on Kilimanjaro for 8 days, and we made it to the summit.
Wow.
It's hard. It was really, really hard.
So, what do you think put that drive in you to accomplish all the things that was part of it? You running away from your relationship with your
Oh,
father?
not just running away. I think it was to prove him that I had value. See, when I had a severe beating when I was 6 years old, and instead of cowering, I said, I'll show you. I'll prove to you that I've got worth. And I think as you look at all the things I accomplished, I think I was a young man just trying to find love from his father,
Hmm.
trying to use achievement as a way to understand, to help him love me. And I had achievement addiction. I talk about that I was just so addicted to achievement. And I mean, I've been able to do it. So again, I've never had a tennis lesson, but I'm in 3 tennis coaches halls of fame. I mean,
Right.
who does that? I mean, and I'm not bragging. It's what God decided to do with my life, and that's why I think that I've written the book, because I talk about my testimony in here. I talk about how I hit rock bottom in in the hospital, and how I talk about the whole story of the theoretical physicist, the books about reading, Lee Strobel's book about my baptism, about I tell the whole story. Everything about my testimony is in the book, because I think the book is dedicated, by the way, to anybody that ever felt they weren't good enough, or anybody that ever felt they had to please someone.
Hmm.
That's the dedication in the book.
I definitely need to get that book because
Well,
I've
I think
been that guy.
a lot of people do, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of men. I think a lot is going to resonate with a lot of men. And I know a lot of people are going, well, God, I'm not you. Like I couldn't speak in front of thousands. I wouldn't be in a hall of fame. I wouldn't be, it's not about me. My
Right.
life story is just a vehicle to understanding what I needed to understand and apply. So read the book as a vehicle, not don't you're not I'm not read I didn't write the book so you can be me. That's not why I wrote the book. I wrote the book to help people understand that achievement addiction can be real. It can be real that you're looking for love in all the wrong places. It can be real that you're kind of lost. It can be real. That's why I wrote the book. And that's why the end of the book is the mountain that changed everything because when I was on Kilimanjaro, it hit me. Because as we said earlier, the last 20 years of my life, because I've done so many incredible things, I've had people tell me you need to write your life story. You need to write your memoir. Well, and I was all in. I was writing, taking notes, and then I was on Kilimanjaro, and it hit me that if I tell the story, it has to be the whole story. My
Right.
dad, the marriages, the whole story. And that's what it is. So it's all the good and the bad, but it culminates with understanding what joy really is in the Lord.
Amen. I'm going to ask you a few questions that may be hyperbole because we're talking about mountains,
Yeah.
but there are physical mountains and then there are spiritual mountains.
Hmm.
And Jesus talks about, if you have faith that's a grain of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, be moved.
100.
We know that story.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens to a man when he's looking at a mountain and instead of climbing that mountain, he keeps walking around it and avoiding it?
Mhm.
What can a man do to actually climb that mountain instead of avoiding it?
First of all, I think it's commonplace. That's why I called the book Mountains Within.
Hmm.
Biggest mountains we have to climb are inside ourselves. It's not the one we're looking at, but it's just like the one we're looking at. Like if I look, when we saw this mountain on day two, we didn't try to summit until the sixth night. On day two, we were at 12,000 feet. We were gassed. 12,000 feet. We'd been hiking for 2 days, and all of a sudden the clouds parted and we saw the mountain. And I'm telling you, flat out, you're just going, not a chance. There's no way. I've got artificial knees. My son's 12 years old. I started making all the rationale on why we couldn't do it. Honestly, I'm on the mountain and I'm going, I don't think I can do this. And it's just like when we face our own mountains. But I looked at my son, and my son's Chinese, and I hold that very near and dear to my heart. But we decided that our life, that next 4 days, was going to be the famous Chinese proverb: the journey of 1,000 miles is the first step, and then the next step. And I said, if I look at that mountain, I can't climb it, but I can take the next step. I know I can take the next step. And that is what I would tell people is it's easier to walk around the mountain and skirt it, but it's just as easy to take one step forward. Now, it could be as simple as weight loss. It might be more magnificent. It might be your marriage problems, but take a step. The word can't or won't shouldn't be in your vocabulary.
Right.
I said, I can't make it to the mountain. I won't be able to do it. Well, then what can I do? I can take the next step. I can take one step. And maybe I meet with a counselor and it's a tough meeting. Okay, that was tough. I can go to the next meeting. Or if I have to, I'll find another counselor. I mean, at that point, then you got to be careful though, because that's part of skirting the mountain.
Right.
Like, you're not the one for me, kind of a thing. It's so you've got to understand what is this is where we have to be as men. We have to say what part of what I'm dealing with is true and what part is a story I'm telling myself. So my internal story, my internal narrative had to be that I can take the next step no matter what. And as I look back on my life, I was never trained for any of the stuff I did. I was never trained to be a speaker. I was never trained to be a tennis coach. I was never trained to be a business owner, but I could take a step and learn one thing, learn the next thing, and I could take a step. And that's my whole life. My whole life's been take that step. And then I think when I was in the hospital and I hit rock bottom and I said, okay, I got to get this right. I got to figure this out. So I took a step. I bought the books, the theoretical physicist book. I didn't jump into Lee Strobel's book right away. I took the step that I knew I needed to take a step forward. And then I took the next step. And then when I went to Discovery Church, and David Lovelace had us lower our heads, and he said, if anyone here says that prayer, the salvation prayer, raise your hand. And my hand went up. And then I went to David afterwards, and he took me to lunch, and he learned a lot about me, and then he invited me to be part of his men's leadership group. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me, because I'm in my heart, I can't do this, but yet I can go to that first meeting. I can go to that first meeting. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. Go to the meeting. You don't have to solve the problem. Take the step. Take
Yeah.
the step. Take the step. That's
Yeah.
probably the best advice. And
Yeah.
don't stop taking steps.
Right. That's fantastic advice. It reminds me of a quote. I think I heard it on Modern Wisdom. The success you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding. So
Yeah.
just take that next step.
Take the next
Do you
step.
have any stories that stand out to you of men who look successful on the outside, but they were quietly stuck because of an internal battle they were refusing to address?
Oh, I think there's all kinds. You know, I mean, I can't say any names. I mean, we worked with thousands of world-class athletes in our business at the Human Performance Institute. But I mean, we had this phrase all the time that you have to leave your posse at the door when you come in to work with us. Because what happens very often, and we do this in life, this isn't just athletes. We surround ourselves with people that support our own narrative. We don't want people confronting us in general. I mean, it takes a strong person to be able to hear truth fed into your soul. And that's where I always ask, what part of what I just heard is true? Even if I don't like the person and they're giving me feedback, what part of what I just heard is true? Um, so when we would have people leave your posse at the door, and these are very, very famous athletes, because if you're coming to us to work with you, to help you in your struggles, it's with you. It's not your posse. It's not the narrative that you surround yourself with. It's you. The biggest battle is within yourself.
Right. So
Yeah, I'd
you
rather not
gave a
talk
good,
about names, but
right,
any,
right, yeah. You
yeah,
gave a good practical step. A practical is to take the next step.
taking it slow.
Spiritually, what does a man need to do to overcome the mountain within?
Well, believe. I mean, that's what faith is, believe, number one, and then pray with that belief.
Yeah,
Um, you may not get the answer you want, but God will answer the prayer. I mean, when we adopted our son, I mean, I prayed, I said, God, if you don't want us to do this, take it away. And doors kept opening. And here I was going to go by myself. God, are you sure you want me to do this? I've never had a kid. I've never had a child. Are you sure? I mean, take it away. Block it. Please block it. Doors opened. More doors opened. And pray with belief. Pray with belief and then just listen and then take the step. If you take a step in the wrong direction, God will stop it.
yeah,
I mean, it won't happen. I mean, and this is where I say, and this sounds like motivational speak. So let me work through it with your listeners because it's going to
for
sound very
sure.
hyperbole at first. I truly believe that within your God-given talent and how you train, you can become anything you want. Now, let me step back because that sounds like total hype. What is God-given talent? I'll use extreme word pictures. Shaquille O'Neal, 7'2", well over 300 pounds, could not be a jockey in the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
And likewise, a jockey in the Kentucky Derby could not be a center in the NBA. That's an extreme example that God-given talent isn't where they should be. So within your God-given talent, Moses had a lisp. Moses even said, I can't talk. Well, you're the one that's going to free the people.
Right.
I mean, okay, he believed with faith because our brain is not our best friend, Mark. Our human brain is not our best friend.
For
Our
sure.
brain will circle the wagons and make everything work until it works for us. It'll just constantly circle the wagons until it rationalizes. So you have to pray with your heart, believe with your heart, and then take the next step. If you take a step in the wrong direction, it will not work. Then refocus, take another step.
Mm.
I mean, when we started our own business, if we said we can't do it, we couldn't have, but we didn't know what we were
Right.
doing. We didn't know what we were doing, but we had to take steps. We had to take steps. Did I have a backup? I always had a backup. I didn't say this to your listeners. When I was at the University of Illinois, I said I stopped coaching the men's team. I was traveling. I was a professor. I got a joint appointment in bioengineering. I got tenure. I was a tenured professor at a Big Ten university. And 3 years later, I quit to
Wow.
go to become the director of tennis at Saddlebrook Resort. I gave up tenure at a Big Ten. I want everybody to understand that. You gave up job security for your whole life to be a tennis coach. Now, it might have been for the wrong reasons, but I took the step. But I had a backup plan. My backup plan was I can probably get back in higher education. And that was my backup plan. And I knew that I really did believe, even though I hadn't recommitted my life, I knew that I was going to be okay. I trusted.
Wow. So what's the core message you want people to take away from your book?
Well, I think it goes to the epilogue. Have hope. This isn't about hopelessness. This is about hope. Life is about hope, but it's what you make of it. I mean, you can throw the pity party and be in your couch all day long, and or you can I mean, and I'll use the sport analogy. You can be on the sidelines and be a cheerleader, or you can get in the game. I mean, I obviously my background. I got in the game. I didn't want to be on the sidelines,
Right.
but I didn't know what that meant. As I look back now, after all these years, yeah, I got in the game, man. I wasn't on the sidelines ever. And by the way, cheerleaders aren't on the sidelines. Cheerleaders are in the game. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? There
Yep.
might be a role for you, but you're involved in the game. You're not just a spectator. You're involved in the game. Um, that's one, is have hope and be in the game. Number two is this whole idea coming back to mentoring. Always, always, always have somebody that feeds into your soul, into your heart and soul, um, with love and with truth. And then if you're later on, like I mentor probably about 25 people now, and they're younger people in their 40s, and they're close to midlife crises maybe, and they're trying to figure themselves out, but I'm on the phone constantly with younger adults, and that feeds my soul to help them and let them talk. And I had one person. I can tell this story because it's public knowledge. She's the co-host on my podcast. We're just dropping it next week.
Hmm.
It's called "You Don't Know Jack," and which is kind of a funny name.
Yeah.
But her name is Dr. Haley Perlis, and she tells this story in one of the first podcasts, so it's public information. But she reached out to me 2 years ago. We had worked together quite a bit, and she's got a doctorate in sports psychology. Brilliant woman, brilliant young woman. And she said, I want to do what you do. That's what she said. I want to do what you've done in your career. And I said, okay, put the brakes on. Let's let's understand who you are first. So I had her fill out some things like her dreams, and really just step back and take a 20,000 foot look at, like, do you want to be married? Where are you in your life? What do you want to do? And she filled that out, and she loves to tell this story that we talked after she filled all the information for me. And the conversation went like this. Well, how are you, Haley? I'm fine. What'd you think of what I wrote? I said, you're not going to do what I did. I'm not going to let you, because you want more out of your life than I got out of mine.
Wow.
You don't want, I will not let you do what I did. Now, having said that, I think you can have a hugely successful career, but within your dreams, within your goals, within your, you don't want to be me. And that was the conversation.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't let her be me or do what I
Yeah.
did because I made too many sacrifices.
So hope, mentoring.
Those two
That's
things are the biggest. Um, you know, and trust God. I mean, trust God.
Amen.
Trust God. You may not like it. I'm not saying trust God and everything's going to be rosy.
No,
Trust
it's
God,
never,
it might
never
be
easy.
hard.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, I hit rock bottom. I want to just bring this full circle because how the book ends. Remember, I told you in the 90s I was hospitalized and nobody came to visit me?
Right.
When I moved down here 2 years ago, I volunteered to coach the ladies' league team here, tennis coach. And I got to know everybody very quickly. And they invited me to come to their home. And I'm single. I mean, and here I am, the single older guy with all these married women. It's really kind of a joke that because there's nothing between any of us. I just teach tennis and coach tennis, and we all care about each other. But 4 months later, I was hospitalized with like atrial flutter. And Mark, I was surrounded by people.
Wow.
And that's the message I want your listeners to hear. Because 30 years earlier, I was in a hospital alone because I hadn't learned how to invest energy in other people. And then I was hospitalized here, and after only 3 months, I was surrounded by people.
Awesome. Yeah. When does your book come out?
January the 8th, it launches. It's pre-sale right now.
Okay.
It's going to be available in audiobook, and it should be available anytime, but the paperback, the hardcover, and the ebook are all available for pre-sale right now. And January 8th, it drops. It'll be available worldwide.
So we're recording this on the 3rd. This podcast will come out on the 7th.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Well,
perfect. So
I hope everybody
people,
will consider it.
make
And
sure you go and get the book. But
thank you.
before we end, there's a question I ask every man that comes on the podcast.
Oh, boy.
Yes. In 1 Samuel 22, David just slew Goliath. Saul got jealous, wanted to kill him. So David ran to the cave of Adullam. I'm skipping parts of it, but David ran to the cave of Adullam. While David was in that cave, the men of the kingdom became disgruntled, disheartened, discouraged. They came to David. Under David, they were mentored through David. It doesn't exactly say that in the Bible, but we
Mhm.
know these men came to David. While they were there, they were under David's tutelage. He gave them encouragement, hope, inspiration. They stayed with him through the time that he became king of Judah and then king of Israel. They became David's mighty men. And in 2 Samuel, David talks about the mighty men, and there's many stories in Chronicles and Kings about the mighty men. Modern day, you got men in front of you who are disgruntled, disheartened, discouraged. What would you say to them?
Do not live life alone.
Hmm.
Do not live life alone. Because I can look back and again in my book, I talk about Chuck Dillman saying the 17 words to me, Bob Singer giving me some seriously tough love. Yet here was one of the world's most renowned sports psychologists of the time, David Lovelace, taking me under his wing and putting me in his men's leadership group. Do not do life alone.
Amen.
Not designed for that.
Awesome. So I'm going to have a link, an Amazon link for your book in the description,
Thank you.
and I'll have your website. Is there anywhere else people can connect with you?
Well, LinkedIn is probably the best. I'm most active on LinkedIn, and it's just under my name,
Okay.
Jack Grapple. Yeah, and so just do a search and connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Dr. Jack, thank you for coming on.
Welcome.
You were
Such
a delight. I really loved your story, and I'm definitely going to read your book. Maybe after I read the book, I can have you back on and we can discuss it.
I'd love that. That'd be
Awesome.
okay. Wonderful.
God bless you.
Bless you. Thanks, Mark.
Wasn't that a powerful conversation? My takeaway from this conversation was that every man has a mountain inside of him that he is afraid to face. For some of you, it may be a father wound. It may be an abuse from the past. It may be some kind of addiction. Maybe it's achievement addiction, or maybe it's an addiction that you're dealing with that you're afraid to face. For some, it might be the belief that you're just not enough. But I'm telling you, and I've told you many times before, you are enough, because if you are a warrior for God, a valiant warrior for God, and you are, whether you feel like you are or not, you are enough. And faith, as a grain of mustard seed, can face the mountain that is within inside you. But my favorite part of what Dr. Jack said is that you don't have to face the whole mountain all at once. It's one step at a time. And I've mentioned this many times in my encouragements and things that I've shared on YouTube and here on the podcast. Just make the next right step. Every step forward you take is a decision on how you're going to face the mountain. So are you going to face it or are you going to avoid it? That's not for you to answer me. That's for you to ask yourself. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate it if you would share it with a friend, find another brother who could get something out of this. If you're not already subscribed to the podcast or to YouTube or whatever platform you're listening or watching this on, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about the episode. And please, I'm going to do it myself. Go pick up Dr. Jack's book. I'm going to have a link in the show notes to his website and to the book on Amazon. And I believe I'll try to get the link and post it on YouTube. I don't know if I'll have it right now, but I'll have his YouTube channel linked in the description. He's doing a live to promote the book launch on Thursday. I'm not sure what time, but he did mention it to me, and I'm going to try to be there myself. So I'd love to see you there. If you're there in the comments with me, say, hey, Mark, I'm from the Valiant Forge. Happy to see you. That'd be great. So until next time, with that, stay strong, stay valiant, keep forging your path, and be blessed.